You've probably done this before. You're looking for some new piece to play and you hear something you love. It sounds amazing, it looks impressive, and you think, I want to play that. Fast forward a few months and the piece isn't even close to being finished, and you haven't progressed one bit. The problem? Picking a piece shouldn't solely be based on enjoyment. That's only half the puzzle. If you only pick pieces because you like how they sound, you'll keep getting stuck. So to help you, I've identified 3 factors so you can pick pieces that will help you progress while staying fun. The first and most important factor should always be to pick pieces based on your weaknesses. With every single piece, the goal should be to address a single gap in your technique and to try and solve it by playing this piece. That could be finger independence, some problems with rotation, you want more evenness, maybe you want to play more relaxed. Usually, if you want to get to a certain level of difficulty of pieces, these pieces use all sorts of difficult techniques. And with easy pieces, they sometimes use one. And a very effective way to do this is by practicing etudes. Basically just studies that are written specifically for you to practice a single part of your piano playing. And somehow a lot of these etudes have horrible reputations for being boring to practice. But I personally really enjoyed practicing a lot of these. Besides them actually being way more interesting pieces than a lot of people think, the best part is just the fast progress you make, because they really do work. I used to take a lot of recordings and videos of me playing. I think the best way to motivate yourself to keep going is to just look at those recordings and see the progress you've made in only matters of months. And playing those types of etudes really works so well, especially if you have the goal to go towards like concert etudes later on, like those of Chopin, Liszt. Playing these, I would say, are highly recommended. So the goal right now should be to find what's lacking in your piano playing and then to fix those gaps with certain piano pieces that solve these issues. The second factor is to choose a piece that's the right difficulty. And please don't fall for the advice where people tell you to don't care about the difficulty. I see a lot of people playing pieces they just love to hear and that are far beyond what they can achieve. And this always ends badly because you end up wasting a lot of time because this doesn't make you progress. I think it's just not true that that is the most effective way to push past the plateau. And by all means do this. By all means pick pieces that are very difficult if you're just having fun. But for me, I think it's way more fun to actually play pieces to completion while actually progressing, knowing I'll get there eventually. Because in this way, you won't get anywhere. You might still be spending a lot of time practicing, but it doesn't give you any results. So where's the fun in that? Where's the fun in attempting something you won't be able to do, while at the same time you could be slowly progressing towards that goal, knowing you'll reach it, and it's just a matter of time. Difficulty itself, ironically, is a very difficult subject because it's subjective. It all depends on your personal ability. Like if modern piece could be very difficult to memorize, or if you have small hands, playing a Rachmaninoff piece could be very annoying. Same goes with playing pieces at different types of tempos or the entire length of the piece. Obviously, a piece that's 5 times as long but technically the same difficulty would become more difficult because of the different techniques you're applying. And that's why it's just so difficult to describe your current skill level as a pianist, and why progress isn't always obvious. Because you might be feeling like you're a very great pianist because your fingers are very strong if you've been practicing technique, for example. First link in the description, by the way, on how to build finger strength. And for example, you could be an 8 out of 10 on finger speed, and then you could play a Chopin etude that's solely focused on that, and you might see yourself as that type of pianist. But the goal should really be to build up everything equally. But the general rule of thumb that I go for is to only go beyond your difficulty level if you're addressing a specific technique. So don't do this with a Chopin ballade or a Chopin scherzo where there's a lot of difficult techniques happening at once. Only time you should go beyond your ability is with the pieces I mentioned before, where you're addressing a single technique. Otherwise, really make sure to practice pieces at your level or even slightly below them. And by doing this, you will read a lot of pieces, which will improve your reading speed, and overall you will improve much faster. Because even with these pieces you think are too easy for you, you'll notice there's still a lot to improve. And the third factor is that you should still pick pieces based on what you like to hear. Generally, for the most ambitious pianists who are practicing multiple hours a day, their repertoire would look something like this. They would play 4 pieces at the same time. A Bach piece, a classical sonata, an etude, and then some piece of choice, which will often be a more romantic or modern piece. And then they would cycle through these 4. While this method works really well, I really don't think it's necessary to play a lot of sonatas, for example, if you don't like how they sound. But I would still try to recommend you to play some Bach, because it's incredible how well he works for improvement and just how fun he can be if you really get to know the music of Bach. So the only thing that remains now, so you're not playing the same 10 pieces that everybody else is playing, is that I'm going to be giving you a list of a lot of pieces you can try that are good to practice based on difficulty. Before I give you the exact piece recommendations, I just want to tell you that you can get all of these for free.
Just Google the piece name and add IMSLP, and this is a website that just gives all the sheet music away for free. Because since it's classical music, it's no longer copyrighted. First up is Chopin, and I was only able to add mazurkas, nocturnes, and waltzes because most of his pieces are just extremely difficult. I wasn't able to add his scherzos, ballades, or polonaises, let alone his etudes, as these are extremely complex. Next up is Bach, which is very straightforward. Go from preludes to inventions to sinfonias. For Liszt, you could practice his early etudes. Since he was a student of Czerny, these are inspired by Czerny and work really well to build your technique. What's also interesting is that these are the early versions of Liszt's later, more famous etudes. But they're more accessible and still very beautiful. This is what I recommend you to play for Beethoven. And finally, these are my recommendations for Debussy.